Hey girl!
Hey, good to see
For everyone who doesn't know, the essential Sammy, how would you like to describe yourself?
you. Hello,
I just
everyone.
described you as essential there. I don't know where this word came from, but here we go.
Probably from all of my dancing on Instagram. Yeah.
Actually.
So my name's Sabi Kerr, and I'm a self-love coach. And my mission, my work is all around guiding women to deeply love themselves, to connect to their bodies and their soul mission, so that they can live with more purpose, passion, pleasure, prosperity, and really live a radiant life from cultivating a deep sense of self worth.
That is honestly so beautiful. I don't think I've heard anyone describe themselves in a more uplifting, embodied, like confident way as this. Do you know the way, like at weddings or somewhere, people would ask you to describe yourself and what you're doing. You're just like an awkward mess. And there's Sabi coming out with, well, no, that's really beautiful. That's an incredible sort of, like, it really does seem from an outside perspective that you are at this real place of contentment and radiance. It sort of shines out of you. Do you feel like that, like, all the time? I was wondering, because like, do you know what I mean? Like, from an outside perspective, like, everyone would think, gosh, this girl really has it all together. Have you always been this way?
A really beautiful question. The answer is I'm not 100% like energetic and like top of my game all the time. Like that's just not human.
Yeah, no,
um,
I think that's really important to emphasize, that it's not realistic to expect that level of
but
everything from yourself.
but I think, and this is like the self-love work, right? I'm at a place now where no matter how I'm feeling, I welcome it, I embrace it, I love me no matter what. Like if I've woken up and I'm feeling really shitty, I'm like just feeling terrible, feeling upset, like I can still love me in that moment. And I think that's the game changer. Like that is the real self-love work. Yes, we're aiming to be feeling more vibrant or more radiant, like as much as possible. But in those moments where we don't, can we still meet ourselves with love and compassion there too?
I think that's really important actually to remember, because I do often think that people think that self love is, waking up feeling fantastic every day. Whereas what you've said there is, something not really many people share. Like, that on days when you're feeling not on top of your game, that you can still love yourself then too. And that's not self-love, that is exemplifying self-love, showing yourself love in those times as well. I think that's really important to emphasize and get across to others, actually, that that's actually okay, and it's totally human and normal to experience all those emotions.
Mm, absolutely. Like embracing your humanness is so important because when you push away the stuff that you don't want, the sadness, the anger, the frustration, the whatever it is,
Yes.
when you say, like, this is bad, I don't want this, it actually stays longer. But it's
Yeah.
when you allow yourself to be in that space and give it, like, just give it some acknowledgement, give it a little bit of attention.
Like,
Then
actually being mindful that it's there as well. I think a lot of
yeah,
people are so distracted in this world that they don't actually give themselves the time to tune into their emotions and tune into how they're feeling on a particular day, and maybe associate, oh, why am I maybe feeling like that? Has someone said something to me? Have I overworked? Actually tuning into yourself and think, like, giving yourself the time, really,
yeah, exactly,
in
exactly.
such a busy world as well. So important, right?
Mm, absolutely. Giving yourself some time just to be with you. It's everything.
Yeah. And have you grown up with a real cultivating loving yourself, or has this been a real journey for you in terms of not feeling so good to shining so bright?
I've always been quite a happy, smiley person. But that doesn't
We
mean to
know
say
that on the outside doesn't necessarily translate
yeah,
to how you
yeah.
really feel.
I often say, like, I haven't had like a rags to riches self-love story. Like, I didn't come from total like self-loathing to like now absolute self-love. So I've always been fairly happy and fairly self-loving, but on a like without even really thinking about it too deeply. And it was,
Yeah, like it wasn't sexy, it wasn't like a glamorized thing
not,
that like
not
everyone was yeah.
and it was at the end of a long relationship, and like that breakup mixed with my first yoga teacher training when I like went to India, and dove into spirituality, and I was a bit like, oh, there's so much more to this stuff, to this life stuff, to self-development. And I think I just discovered a whole new world and realized, even though I was like fairly self-loving, there was a hell of a lot more work to do.
Yeah,
And for me, that's a good thing. Like, there's always
for sure.
healing and work to do. We're never finished, you know.
No. But you've actually reached like a new level of self-love. So you were loving yourself before self-love was sexy, and now you're like on this other plane of vibration of self-love. I actually love that though, because I do feel like a lot of people have been on a journey with it in terms of their story is very much self-loathe to self-love, and this is how I did it. But it's nice that you've had that sort of stability through life. That I think that's quite rare that you haven't. Yeah.
That's not to say that I haven't had challenges and hardships. I just don't think I've never had a really poor relationship with myself. But that being said, there are many layers to this, and the more work that I've done, like now and over the last few years, I've realized that the ways that, you know, I've shown up in relationships, although it didn't come on a conscious level from like self-loathing, I wasn't putting myself first. I was kind of self-abandoning. I wasn't fully expressing my needs and like expecting someone to treat me how I truly deserve to be treated. Like there were many, you know, many cases in the past where, although I wasn't consciously loathing myself, I can see how I kept myself in situations that now I'd be like, okay, no, let's take ourselves out of that.
I'm not willing to accept that.
Totally. So, and I think that's important to know that there are so many layers to this. Like, you don't have to feel consciously like you're totally loathing yourself to go on your self.
Yeah,
You know, like, this work is for everyone.
for sure. That's really, I don't think a lot of people either would take the time to actually go back and sort of think about how they were maybe whenever they were 12, when they were 15. What were they doing then in their lives? How was their friendships? How was their health? How was their relationships and everything? And really think about, be mindful of how you were then and how you are now, and sort of like learn from those experiences, whether you were fully conscious, because you develop more as you grow, like, and we should be ever evolving humans and learning and sort of, yeah, just really taking that time to work through our traumas, whether we realize they were traumas or not at the time. Like, you know, we are all damaged in ways, and like it really does take coming back to ourselves and just being with yourself and figuring yourself out. You know, you don't need to be delving into all these things. You know, sometimes it just takes you to just be with yourself with like a notebook and pen, right? Or your body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure, you know, it's, and what would you sort of say for because I always like I have been in a place in my life where I really have just felt so disgusting and unworthy and stuff like this that, you know, you wouldn't really wish on your worst enemy. But I sort of do feel that from coming from times like that, it makes you feel so appreciative and grateful for whenever you are feeling a lot better. But I would have tuned into a lot of, you know, podcasts and everything whenever I was feeling that way. Whenever I was listening to these people, although I thought of sort of, it gave me a sense of hope that, gosh, they felt really bad and now they are these electric humans, you know, they're doing all these amazing things for the world and they felt so bad at one stage. But then at the same time, I was like, but I'm never going to get that way. And there is a sort of, do you not feel like whenever people are at such a place of self-loathing that they don't even feel that they deserve to feel that they deserve to give themselves love? So although they could know all the tips and tricks of what we could say to do to show yourself more love, like how do you actually, do you know, I think there's a step before to be had there to actually get yourself to a place of feeling like you deserve to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to see this as more on like a scale
Yeah,
rather than I hate myself, I love myself, you know? Can
yeah,
you go
that's not
like,
achievable.
because that can feel really like, yeah, not achievable or like, oh, that would never be me. I'm so far away from that. So instead, you know, can you just come to a place of right, instead of total hate, maybe you are working on coming to a space of just accepting where you're at right now, like that space of acceptance. You might not love yourself yet, you might not like yourself, but maybe you're working on accepting whenever you're feeling those things, and that might be your work for a while, you know.
Yeah,
Then you might move on to the next step of like liking yourself a little bit, or like appreciating yourself sometimes, like positive self-talk sometimes. So I think for anyone that's feeling like they're really far away, just
yeah.
take a deep breath, take some of the pressure like off yourself, and remember that this is a journey and you don't have to get there overnight.
That's really nice to sort of think of it. Like I sort of envisaged whenever you said that there, like start off just like wee baby steps of like working yourself up a triangle almost of, you know, it doesn't need to be, okay, I hate myself, I'm going to start loving myself today, tomorrow. No, start with like liking yourself, or maybe like myself for an hour today, you know, those wee like even like yourself for 5 minutes today, that's more than hating yourself for 24 hours of the day, right? So oh, that's a lovely way to think of it, actually, to take the pressure off and to encourage people that it's actually worthwhile to do this for yourself and that you do deserve it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because whenever something feels really hard and unachievable, there's just so much pressure, and so just give yourself permission to take your time, and yeah, for there not to be any pressure for you to get to a certain place.
Yeah, I think that's a really lovely, actually. Do you know, with social media, do you think, because this does sort of like concern me, thinking of, you know, the future generations coming up in this, that I'm actually very grateful that I didn't grow up in this generation where social media is so pervasive and I had a childhood and experiences and everything. Do you think, or have you found yourself that you need to set certain boundaries with social media? Do you know, do you ever find yourself falling in? Because I would always think, you know, comparison's the thief of joy. Do you ever, like, what's your relationship with social media and comparison and do that kind of thing?
Yeah, totally. It's pretty good now, but because I use it so much for work,
Yeah, same.
you know, I have to set my boundaries, and I don't always stick to them, and that's an ongoing process for me, because
Yeah,
could be very easy for me to like
be
be on
on it
Instagram
24/7.
7, so easy, because you know a lot of the
You're
time it's
always
kind of work,
growing
right?
and connecting, and yeah, you
Yeah.
could be on a 20. Yeah,
So really having to remind myself that like I am not my Instagram. Like I have a whole
yeah,
life of my own outside of the work that I do. And so for me, like that is more of my work rather than the comparison stuff, because I'm
Mm.
quite a good place with my work and I'm feeling pretty good about that. But it's more around, yeah, making sure that I don't like glue myself to my phone, because that actually doesn't feel good at all.
I know. Like whenever, because I do think as well, like lockdown has probably emphasized that for a lot of people, where everyone's got addicted to something, whether it's like porn or food or, you know, like social media, you know, everyone's, because we have, like we're social beings, you know, we create this connection and this connection has been taken away. And social media does afford some sort of connection, whether you're connecting from a distance and you don't really connect with anyone. I would be very public and I like commenting and I'm very active online, but you know, a lot of people would just consume mindlessly and they would just be scrolling all day and, you know, not even aware that they're taking in all this information and just influx of things, and they're actually not even aware that they feel like rubbish after. They actually feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm disgusting. Like look at them, they're glowing and they're unreal, and look at the state of me. Like what am I doing? And you know, what is like, have you any tips sort of for people in something
Yeah.
like this?
First of all, work on being on Instagram a little less if you're finding that every time you do go on it, you're stuck in, you know, that comparison hole. And like a reminder that Instagram is not people's real life 24/7. It's a snapshot of their life. So yeah, what they're sharing you, like may be true, but that is not their whole life. And everyone that is showing up online that's glowing and that's radiant and looks like they're, you know, just like on top of their game, everyone has down days and has days where they're feeling really terrible and has days where they're like stuff is not going well, and that stuff doesn't always get shown. So like remembering that, I think, is the most important thing. Remembering that these people are not like superhuman, they're still human.
So freaking important to remember. Like whenever someone sees Sabi and her sexy dancing, Sabi is not sexy dancing 24 hours of the day. That is literally
maybe
like
just maybe just like 23 hours of the day I am. But no, totally.
real life. No, but like literally that is what, like a 15-second could be 8-second video of you feeling yourself, you know, it literally, but people do associate that 8 seconds with that is her whole life without realizing. And I think it's important checking in your strong friends too, right?
Absolutely, because they're the ones that we think don't need the help and support, but often they do, and they don't always have people to turn to because they're used to being the one that other people come to.
Yeah, everyone else's cheerleader, but we must always remember to give ourselves the love that we so endlessly give to everyone, right?
Yes.
I think that's a nice way to end it, actually. What do you think?
Absolutely, that was a great way to end it.
Oh, thank you so much, Sabi. Honestly, you're a true superstar, glowing angel.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, darling.